Hey, it's Dr. Dunaway here with Chiro Strength. In today's video, I'm discussing, can you squat safely with Scheuermann's disease? Now, the quick answer to that is yes. So, before we get started, if you do like this video, hit subscribe, hit the like button. That does help out the channel in a lot of different ways. I'm going to try to be including more videos more frequently. So just like this video is a response to a question I got, shoot your questions if you have anything down in the comments, and I'll do my best to cover those in future videos. But with Scheuermann's disease, I hate the term disease. I really dislike that connotation, so I'll refer to it as Scheuermann's kyphosis. Now, the stigma with Scheuermann's kyphosis is that because you have this rounded back like this, axial load is not warranted, or it's dangerous. And now axial load is just if gravity's pushing down and I have weight on my back, or I'm holding weight and that's further compressing the vertebra, that is seen as bad. I would disagree. I think you can lift safely. I would argue that lifting is necessary for the preservation of those joints and discs, because that axial load, if done properly with good technique, can help that discomfort or pain that you might be feeling associated with Scheuermann's kyphosis. I believe that can be more therapeutic than detrimental. But there are a few caveats with this. Mainly the younger population that are not skeletally mature yet. If you have not developed skeletal maturity yet, that is risking that kyphosis could be actively progressing or getting worse. In that case, I would suggest not going and loading this in the gym on your own unless you get assessed by somebody and they can see you, they can take x-rays of you and monitor you as you're progressing to adulthood. And even then, it might be safe, but don't rely on this information to decide if that's safe or not for you. Make sure you're assessed by a professional. However, for those of you who are skeletally mature, the main things to keep in mind here are a few techniques with as you're squatting, where the neck and back are at, making sure we're not overextending, because you're more likely than somebody with a more neutral spine or more less kyphotic spine, you're more likely to overextend the neck and anteriorly tilt or over anteriorly tilt that pelvis. So in this video, we're going to describe a few lifting techniques as well as some lifting variations, because if one variation is bad, you can still get a great training stimulus with the modified squat that's not as compressive, especially if that spine's a little more sensitive. So let's get into some of those variations now. So let's just start with a normal traditional back squat. And we'll use this as a way to talk about more technique and then go through some different variations after we talk about technique. So if we get the bar up here, one of the main things I usually see with the hyperkyphosis is that there's an overemphasis of this neck being up like this. So if I squat and my neck's up like this, that's going to put a whole lot of pressure on both the neck and the low back, because I cannot extend my neck without also overextending that low back, which is usually what someone will do to try to compensate for this look like this. So your neutral spine might not be the same as my neutral spine. To find your neutral spine, what I'll have people do is go through a modified cat-cow. So as I tuck my butt, I'll look forward and push up through my spine. And this is just basically reinforcing a poor posture. And then on the inhale, I'll come into this position where I'm anteriorly tilting my pelvis. I'm keeping myself pushed through my shoulders here, and I'm going to tuck my chin. And this is more of a neutral spine. So exhale, inhale. And I'll do a few rounds of that before a squat, because this position I'm in right now is going to be more the position that I'm going to want to squat with. And it's not going to be at the very end range where I'm really extending my spine, but this position with the chin tucked, a slight anterior pelvic tilt, that's the position I kind of want to squat with. So I'm going to think about that positioning after I get a little kind of awareness of it from that modified cat-cow. And then I'm going to kind of find that neutral position by maybe bringing my ribs down slightly and tucking my chin. So then at the bottom of the squat, I'm going to be looking here kind of a couple of inches in front of me, as opposed to looking up like this with that neck really extended. Now, as far as squat technique in general, I have a different video up all about hip mechanics and what hip mechanics mean for your squat position, whether it's really wide with the toes out, really narrow, toes forward. The anatomy of the hip is going to make a big difference in what squat technique is better for you. So I'll put the link to that, the link to that video in the description below. So check that out if you need to. However, that's the first key to be able to squat pain-free. Don't overextend the back and don't overextend the neck at the bottom. Try to maintain a bit more neutral spine as you go down and come back up. And when I say neutral spine, again, that's what's neutral for you. So get the neck out of it, get the spine out of it, and that should help a lot with the discomfort when it comes to more of a barbell back squat. So let's talk about some different variations. The easiest variation with a barbell squat is limiting the amount of depth you're getting and getting down to a bench. Now with a bench, what height is good for you is going to be different. Basically what you should be able to do is you should be able to sit on a bench and lean forward and be able to slowly lift your butt off that bench without having to use momentum to shift forward. Good ground contact between the feet, big toe knuckle, little toe knuckle, the feet, meaning this part of your foot, this part of your foot, and the heel. Those got to remain in contact with the ground as you lean forward and drive up. If that is a good height for me, the first variation is just slowly going down, touching my butt lightly, and coming back up. That will help with that discomfort of the low back if you have it. All right, the next variation, and probably my favorite variation, is going to be a split squat. That split squat is basically dumbbells or kettlebells in one hand, take a big step back, and then it's just slowly going down and coming back up. Now with one hip extended and one hip flexed, that puts the pelvis in a much more neutral position and prevents that likelihood of you changing into more of an anterior pelvic tilt or losing that with a butt wink at the bottom of the squat. So if the barbell is scary for you, or that there's too much technique involved, or it's painful, this split squat is a wonderful variation to start with, whether you have weight in one hand or both hands. The key with this particular exercise is slow time under tension. So 3 to 5 seconds down, 3 to 5 seconds back up. Great for athletic development and great overall training stimulus that's a little less harsh on the back. Now another great variation for this is just a rear foot elevated split squat. It's a little more difficult, requires a little bit more balance, but again, there's no load going down onto the spine. You're holding the weight, so it's a little less load to the spine, and another great training stimulus for that squat position. Now another variation, which is going to require a bit more posterior activation because the weight's going to be in front of you, and so it's going to require that spine, those spinal extensors to hold you up a bit more, is the goblet squat or the front rack squat. So the goblet squat with the weight out in front of you here, the same thing applies. As you squat, you don't want to be looking forward like this and really extending your neck. You want to keep that chin packed, slowly go down, push back up, and then that variation of a goblet squat can be a great entry point. Now this kind of applies as well to the front squat. If I'm doing a front squat here, this is going to be a lot of load on the low back because my spinal extensors have to help me keep up like this, but the weight also is a bit more over my center of gravity. So if you have a mobility issue, sometimes the front squat's a little easier for you. So same thing applies. Slowly going down, keep that chin packed, don't overextend the neck, and that could be a great way for you to train a bit more quad dominant squat as opposed to glute dominant squat. So all these variations, whether you're doing a front squat, back squat, box squat, split squat, all of those are good training variations of a squat, and all of those you should be able to do pain-free, at least some of them. Obviously, technique is a big part of this. So some of the other videos that I described as far as improving your squat technique, you can look at those videos after this. But I hope this helps. I hope this clears up some confusion. And if you do have any further questions, shoot me a comment below. Let me know, and I might cover that in a later video. But like I always say, don't just men, train sin. Thanks.